It seems like AI is everywhere these days, right?
Yeah.
Like every time I turn around, there's a new headline about some AI doing something incredible.
Yeah.
But honestly, sometimes it feels kind of overwhelming too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like all that jargon and so much happening so fast, it's hard to keep up.
I get.
Well, today we're going to try to break down one of the big ones.
Yeah.
Something you've probably heard of. GPT.
Right.
That's a Generative Pretrained Transformer.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing a deep dive today into this essay by Jörg-Owe to try to really get what GPT is,
Okay.
what it can do, and why it even matters to, just regular people.
It's definitely not just hype.
Yeah.
GPT is already having like a real impact
yeah.
on all sorts of fields, from education to healthcare to the creative industries.
Wow.
It's changing the way we access and use information, and that's something everyone should be paying attention to.
For sure.
Right.
Okay, so let's start with like the basics.
Yeah.
What even is a GPT?
Right.
I mean, I get that it stands for Generative Pretrained Transformer.
Yeah.
What does that actually like mean?
So basically, a GPT is an AI system that can understand and generate human-like text. It's been trained on massive amounts of data, which allows it to learn patterns and relationships in language.
Right.
And that means it can do things like write different kinds of creative content, like poems or even code. It can translate languages, answer your questions in an informative way, even generate different creative text formats, like
how many things?
Like poems, code scripts, musical pieces, emails, letters, etc.
It's like having a super smart language assistant then.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it, but it's more than just an assistant.
Oh.
GPT can actually create new content.
Really?
Not just respond to your requests.
Wow.
Think about it this way. GPT can analyze a bunch of financial data and then generate a report summarizing the key trends and insights.
That's pretty impressive, I have to admit.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing this didn't just kind of appear out of thin air, right?
Right.
That there must be a history to this.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. The first version, GPT-1, came out in 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was groundbreaking at the time, but things really took off with GPT-3 in 2020.
Okay.
That model had a mind-boggling 175 billion parameter.
175 billion?
Yeah.
Wow. I can barely remember what I had for breakfast.
Right.
So what does that even mean? Like, what is a parameter?
So parameters are basically like the building blocks of the model.
Okay.
The more parameters it has, the more information it can process and the more complex patterns it can learn.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
Yeah.
Imagine learning a new language.
Okay.
The more words and grammar rules you learn, the more fluently you can speak and understand that language, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For GPT, these parameters are like its vocabulary and grammar rules.
Oh, I see.
So with GPT-3 and its huge number of parameters, we saw a big jump in the model's ability to perform tasks that required a deeper understanding of language.
Okay.
Things like writing different kinds of creative content or even generating computer code.
So it's like going from basic phrases in a new language to being able to hold a complex conversation.
Exactly. And then just recently, GPT-4 came out, which is even more powerful.
Oh, wow. So it keeps getting better.
Yeah, it's able to learn even faster and produce even more sophisticated output.
That's incredible. But what makes GPT so different from, the language AI models that came before it? Like, what's the secret sauce?
The magic is in something called the transformer architecture.
Okay.
It's a little technical.
Oh.
But basically, this architecture allows the model to analyze relationships between words in a sentence and understand the overall context in a way that previous models couldn't.
So it's not just processing words one by one.
Right.
It's actually understanding how they all fit together.
Exactly.
Kind of like how our brains work.
Precisely.
Okay.
And that's what lets GPT produce text that sounds so human-like. It's not just randomly stringing words together. It's grasping the nuances of language.
That's pretty amazing. Okay, so we've covered what GPT is and how it works.
The basics.
Yeah. But let's move on to the really exciting part. What can GPT actually do?
Right.
Because I know there's some pretty mind-blowing applications out there.
Oh, where to even begin?
Yeah.
The applications are just exploding in every direction.
Wow.
Let's start with education.
Okay.
Imagine having a personalized AI tutor that adapts to your learning style and helps you grasp complex concepts.
That would have been great back in school.
Right. Or chatbots that can answer your questions about any subject 24/7.
That sounds like a dream come true for anyone who's ever, struggled through a boring textbook.
Definitely.
What about professional fields? How is GPT changing things up there?
Well, take healthcare, for example.
Okay.
Imagine a doctor in a rural area who needs to quickly learn about the latest research for a rare disease.
Mm-hmm.
GPT can analyze a vast amount of medical literature, research papers, even clinical trial data in just seconds.
Wow.
To provide the doctor with the most relevant information, potentially even saving a patient's life.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Using AI to make a real difference.
Exactly.
What about other fields? Does GPT have any impact on creative industries?
Absolutely.
Yep.
GPT can be used to write different kinds of creative content, like poems, code scripts, musical pieces, email letters, etc.
Wow. So it's not just like a practical tool.
Right.
It's about pushing the boundaries of creativity, too.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the possibilities are endless. We're really just scratching the surface of all the ways GPT can be used to enhance our lives and solve problems in new and innovative ways.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, how do we even know that GPT actually delivers on its promises?
That's a great question.
Is there, like, research that backs up all these claims?
Yes. Okay. Actually, Schneppat's essay talks about a really interesting study where researchers used GPT to forecast EBITDA.
EBITDA.
Yeah.
Just so we're all on the same page, could you remind us what that is?
Sure. EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's a measure of a company's operating profitability.
Gotcha.
So in this study, researchers used GPT-4 to try and predict the EBITDA of companies listed on the S&P 500.
So they were basically testing if GPT could accurately predict how profitable these companies would be.
Exactly. And the results were pretty amazing.
Okay.
GPT-4 consistently did better than other prediction models.
Really?
Which suggests that it has a real talent for understanding and analyzing complex financial data.
Wow.
They used a metric called SMAPE, or symmetric mean absolute percentage error, to measure the accuracy of the predictions, and GPT-4 consistently came out on top.
Okay, so it's not just hype.
Right.
There's actual data to back up its capabilities.
Absolutely.
Right.
But as you mentioned earlier, with this kind of power comes a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There are some important conversations happening right now about the ethical implications of AI.
That's definitely something we need to get into. But before we do, let's switch gears for a moment and talk about the community behind GPT.
Okay.
Like, who's working on this stuff?
One of the things that makes GPT so interesting is that there's this whole community of developers and researchers constantly working to improve it and find new applications.
It's not just like one company in a lab somewhere.
Right. It's a collaborative effort.
Okay.
And there's actually a big debate about whether GPT should be open source, which means anyone can access and modify the code, or closed source, which means it's controlled by a specific company.
So it's like the difference between a public park that anyone can use and a private garden that only a few people have access to.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Open source models benefit from having lots of people contribute, which can lead to really fast innovation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there are also concerns about open sourcing such a powerful technology.
Right, like what if it gets used for bad stuff?
Exactly. Think about potential misuse or even malicious applications.
I agree.
Closed source models are often developed with specific applications in mind. But some people argue that restricting access hinders research and stifles innovation.
It's a tough balance.
It is.
So where does OpenAI, the company behind GPT, fit into all of this?
OpenAI is an interesting case.
Okay.
They started out wanting to make AI accessible to everyone, and they were all about open source.
Yeah.
But with the release of GPT-3, they've moved toward a more closed model.
Oh, so they changed their approach.
It's a complex issue with valid arguments on both sides.
Well, it sounds like there are a lot of different perspectives and approaches.
Definitely.
But it's clear that the community plays a vital role in shaping how GPT evolves.
Absolutely. And it's not just the developers and researchers.
No.
We all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI, even if it's just staying informed and engaging in these conversations.
I'm definitely feeling a lot less overwhelmed by the whole AI thing after our conversation.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, and it seems like this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah. There's so much more to explore in the world of GPT.
Okay, so we talked about what GPT is, how it works, some of its crazy applications.
Yeah.
And even the community and research behind it. So what are some key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with from this first part of our deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is that GPT isn't just some cool tech thing. It's already shaping our world in huge ways.
Yeah.
From how we learn, to how we work, to how we express ourselves creatively, GPT is changing the game.
Wow.
And this is just the beginning. As these models continue to evolve and become even more powerful, The potential for both positive and negative impact is immense.
It's definitely a lot to think about.
For sure.
And I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on the ethical implications of all of this, which is something we'll discuss in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah.
It's one we all need to be having as AI becomes more a part of our lives.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of GPT.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We'll be back soon to unpack the ethical considerations and explore what the future might hold for this groundbreaking technology. And a big thanks to Jörg-Owe, whose work is guiding our exploration today.
His work is really fascinating.
Okay, we'll be back soon.
Yeah, see you then. It's amazing to think how fast this technology is moving. Like, what's next for GPT?
Yeah, what's coming down the pipeline? Sounds like they're not slowing down at all.
Not even a little bit. One of the big things they're working on is making GPT even more accurate and reliable.
Even more.
Like, remember that study we talked about with the EBITDA forecasting?
Yeah.
Researchers are constantly refining the algorithms and the training methods, always trying to improve what these models can do.
So like even better predictions, even more insights from the data. I can definitely see how that'd be valuable for like businesses and investors.
Oh, absolutely. But it's not just about numbers.
Okay.
They're also working on making GPT more adaptable and robust.
Okay.
Right now, it's mainly focused on text. But imagine a future where AI can understand images, videos, and audio just as easily.
Whoa, hold on. AI that can understand like all those different types of information at the same time? That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It might sound futuristic, but it's closer than you think. This kind of multimodal understanding would open up so many possibilities.
Like what?
Think about an AI that can analyze a medical image, read a patient's chart, and listen to them describe their symptoms all at once.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would completely change healthcare.
Yeah.
It really does seem like we're moving towards a future where AI is just seamlessly integrated into everything we do.
It's exciting, but it also raises some important questions.
Like what?
Like, as AI gets more capable, what happens to jobs? Will robots replace human workers?
It's a question everyone's asking, right?
Yeah.
Are the machines taking over?
It's not quite that simple.
Yeah.
It's true that AI will probably automate some tasks, which could mean job losses in some areas. But AI is also creating new opportunities and changing existing roles. We have to adapt and focus on developing skills that complement AI, not compete with it.
So things like creativity, critical thinking, complex problem solving, the things that AI isn't so good at yet, those are going to become even more important.
Exactly. Lifelong learning and adaptability are going to be key in this AI-powered future. And remember, AI is a tool. We can choose how we use it. We can use it to automate those boring, repetitive tasks and free up our time for more meaningful work.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So what about creativity? We talked about how GPT can generate art and music, even write stories. Does that mean human creativity is becoming obsolete?
Not at all. I actually think AI can help boost human creativity.
Really?
It can be a collaborator, a brainstorming partner, helping us explore new ideas and push our imaginations further.
Like having a superpowered muse.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
What are some key questions we should be asking as we keep developing and integrating AI into our lives?
That's a good question. What do you think?
Well, one of the most important questions is, how do we make sure AI benefits everyone, not just a select few?
Right.
We have to be mindful of equity and inclusion. We don't want AI to make existing social and economic inequalities even worse.
It's about using this technology to create a more just and equitable society, not widen the gap between the haves and have-nots.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the whole ethical side of things.
Yeah.
How do we make sure AI is used for good? How do we prevent it from falling into the wrong hands? How do we ensure that it aligns with our values as a society?
It's definitely a lot to think about. I'm really glad we're having these conversations now while the technology is still relatively young.
Yeah, me too.
It feels like we have a chance to really shape the future of AI in a positive way.
It's a responsibility. We all share, developers, policymakers, educators, even everyday citizens. We all need to be informed, engaged, and willing to have those tough conversations about the implications of this powerful technology.
This has been a really incredible deep dive into the world of GPT. I feel like I've learned so much already. What are some final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important takeaway is this. AI isn't some distant futuristic concept. It's here, it's happening now, and it's transforming our world faster than ever before. It's up to all of us to shape its future and make sure it benefits humanity as a whole.
That's a really powerful message. I want to thank you for sharing your insights and expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure. These conversations are so important, and I appreciate you having me.
And of course, a huge thanks to Jörg-Owe, whose work has given us such a valuable framework for understanding this complex and rapidly evolving field.
His insights have been really valuable to our discussion today.
To our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of GPT. Stay tuned for our final part, where we'll wrap up our exploration and offer some concluding thoughts.
You know, it's crazy to think that just a couple years ago, most people had never even heard of GPT.
I know, right?
And now it's like changing everything. Yeah, it really shows how fast things are moving in AI. Like, it seems like every day there's some new breakthrough or new application or just new possibilities popping up.
It's hard to keep up with it all sometimes.
For sure. But I have to say, after going through all of this, I feel a lot more informed.
Me too.
And less intimidated by all the talk about AI taking over the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's like once you actually understand the basics and how this tech works,
right,
it's less of a mystery and more like a tool.
Yeah.
That we can use to solve problems and actually create cool new stuff.
Exactly. And I think our exploration of Jörg-Owe's essay has been really helpful.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's given us a good foundation for understanding all the different sides of GPT.
His work is really insightful.
Yeah.
He does a great job of connecting all the technical stuff to, like, the real world impact.
Yeah, and it makes you think about the big picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one thing that really stood out to you from all this?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's realizing that AI isn't something that's going to happen in the future.
Right.
It's already here.
Yeah.
It's part of our lives, even if we don't always see it.
Yeah, it's easy to forget sometimes.
And it's only going to become more integrated into everything we do in the years to come.
So we can't just ignore it or pretend it's not happening.
No, we need to learn about it.
Yeah.
Think about it and be ready to adapt as things change.
This isn't just for tech experts or scientists, right?
Definitely not.
Okay.
This is for everyone, no matter what you do or where you come from. AI is going to affect healthcare, education, entertainment, how we work, how we talk to each other, basically everything.
I like that perspective.
Yeah.
It's not about being a passive observer. It's about being an active participant in all of this.
Yeah, it's about shaping the future together. And that's what I hope our listeners will take away from this whole conversation.
Yeah, me too. Don't be afraid to learn more, ask questions, and share your thoughts. The future of AI is something we're all creating.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the world of GPT.
Thanks for listening.
We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Yeah, we hope it gave you some food for thought.
And if you're interested in learning more about this topic, we highly recommend checking out Jörg-Owe's work.
He's a great resource.
Yeah, you can find a link to his essay in our show notes.
It's definitely worth a read.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking those big questions.